Welcome in, everybody, to another MLS Monday by Scarves and Spikes, part of a double match day, as it were. We've got double duty with MLS Monday, and then we are going to jump over to our Atlanta show.
Atlanta United show.
We got lots to talk about, though. So
we have to be neutral when we're talking about Miami Atlanta for this show.
Atlanta stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
If you weren't aware how we feel about this, we're keeping it super neutral over here.
Yeah.
There are going to be some emotions that are going to be shared in the second hour. Yeah. So, but yeah, we're going to have our MLS show. We're going to chat. It was a good weekend for soccer and MLS in terms of entertainment value for sure. And lots of cool storylines coming out.
Unless you're a Minnesota fan.
Unless you're a Minnesota fan, yeah. Or to be fair, an Atlanta fan, but whatever. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a good show. So we'll cut this one in about an hour, and then y'all jump over with us to our Atlanta show. Quick shout out to everybody that came out to the Signia yesterday, the Nest on 4 bar. Had a great time. Kareem, got to meet you. Awesome being able to see you from New York. That was cool. So just a lot of really good times. We had a fun time. Lots of Miami fans there, but way more Atlanta ones. Yeah, just a few. But we appreciate it. We absolutely appreciate it. And also, quick shout out to Sweetwater Brewery, official beer partner of Scarves and Spikes. Thank you so much for their support. And if you guys don't know, obviously they're the guys that brew the classic 420. They also brewed the Rowdy Peach IPA in partnership with Atlanta United, a handful of other beers, one of which I'm having right now because it is St. Patrick's Day. And why would we not have a beer on St. Patrick's Day? So y'all visit sweetwaterbrew.com for more information, and y'all go check out their info on their 420 Music Festival that's coming up in April.
And also shout out to the Nest on 4 and the City by Hilton Atlanta for hosting us on Sunday before the Atlanta-Miami match. Really appreciate the partnership we have with them. More to come. We're doing shows throughout the year before Atlanta United matches, before Club World Cup matches in Atlanta. So definitely stay tuned for more information on when those days are. But again, a quick shout out to them before we get started here and get rolling.
Absolutely.
Is that where we're going to start? Miami, Atlanta?
Might as well. Let's hit on it real quick because we're going to dive deep into it later. Yeah. But from a neutral perspective, as best as you guys can get there, Sydney, I'll start with you. What do you feel about Atlanta versus Miami in this particular match, knowing everything from the playoffs last year?
Yeah, you could sense, and the three of us we were in the press box watching this match. You could sense there's a little bit more extra than there was in previous matches for Atlanta. By the way, visit us at scarvesandspikes.com for more of our coverage. Like, subscribe, share our content on YouTube, follow us on social, all that good stuff. And go to our shop as well. There's a link to our store as well to get cups, merchandise, and all that fantastic stuff. So we were in the press box, Tyler, you, Henry, and I, watching, and you could sense, really, especially the first half, toward the end of the first half, there's something different about this match. Brad Gazelle is a little bit more vocal than he usually is. Not that he's not vocal. There's right. a little dust up at the end of the first half, flashpoint, if you will, at the end of the first half. I mean, these two teams knew there was something different about this match. Miami coming in with a chip on their shoulder after losing to Atlanta in the playoffs. We all know the story there. So they had something to prove. Not that they have a lot to prove. I mean, they are Miami. They have a lot of, attacking pieces. And certainly Atlanta didn't do themselves any favors. But if you look at Miami's goals, guys, they're both kind of fluky. Bartek Slić, poor clearance. Failed clearance, actually. Messi does what he does. Derek Williams, Greg Guzan get crossed up on a set piece that Fafa Picol puts home late for the winner. So maybe some fluke goals, maybe some of that aura kind of rubbed off on Atlanta a little bit. Fans, I know from a neutral standpoint, we were very upset with officiating. I think Drew Fisher, I don't want to spend too much time on it. Drew Fisher, just very rough performance in the middle of the field. I wasn't impressed by him at all. It's disappointing to see that. But at the same time, the referees in Atlanta, they beat themselves. Miami, still undefeated in 2025 across all competitions, guys. The discussion about them, are they better than they were last year? For now, and you guys feel free to push back if you want. For now, looks like it. For now, it looks like it, the bar is set. Miami has a high bar. Can they keep it going? Of course, with Messi, Suarez, the age factor, can they keep it going? But right now, they look pretty good. What do you guys think?
You say that with this game, Miami is definitely better than they are last year, but I'm not so sure because I think this game was, well, I'm not saying Miami isn't a good team. They absolutely are. And I have them as one of the favorites in the East for sure. Probably one of the favorites to win MLS Cup, no doubt. However, I wouldn't say it just based solely on this game because this was a game that Atlanta United was in the whole time up until the end that they very much could have won had they not, repeatedly shot themselves in the foot the way that they did a lot of last season. Both goals that Miami scored, you could argue, well, actually, I don't even think you could argue, there were things that Atlanta could have prevented.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're looking at like the first one that we talked about it on our 3 takeaways, it's a decision making from Sleech there to just kind of, take a loose touch and let Messi get the ball back and kind of score. That's something that you can't do against one of the most dangerous players, one of the best players in the world. And then the set piece, I mean, dude, the set piece defense on this team, it's been a problem for a while. And that shouldn't be an issue. We talked about, I asked Derek Williams after the game, I'm like, do you know what happened there? And he said, like, he thought Brad was going to get to it. He thought Guzan was going to get to it.
Yeah.
And so that's why he didn't clear it. He could have cleared it. And if you go back and watch the replay, yeah, he could have, because he got there and he just kind of waited because Brad was going down. He thought Brad had it. Brad didn't have it. So it was a miscommunication. But still, when it's a game this big, you can't have those moments. And Derek Williams then went and said it. It's like, what separates them from us is that, they might make some silly turnovers. They might give the ball away sometimes, but it doesn't matter because they will get chances. They'll create chances and then they'll take those chances. Atlanta doesn't do that. Atlanta, they had a really good goal early in the game and it looked very, very good, but they just couldn't keep it going. They couldn't keep creating chances. They had several opportunities to extend their lead. And we will get into this a little bit more later, but my point here is, like, yes, credit to Miami for the start that they're having. Yes, they're a great team. No, I don't think we've seen the full potential of this Atlanta side. No, I don't think they're living up to their potential. No, I don't think that they have reached where they should be yet. And I just hope that we can see that soon because the fans are understandably not happy. And we'll go get some of that later.
Yeah.
Tyler, do you feel like
and the refs were crap.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say the refereeing was just not good.
It wasn't, but again, I mean, that's not why Atlanta lost.
It's not, but it's just a frustrating factor of being in a game and seeing that happen. But I will say this, although the officiating was not great, they did not deserve to have beers thrown at them. That is
that's inexcusable.
Y'all, we're better than that. Please.
MLS, be better than that, right? Like,
yeah,
you're not going to find many more people that were more irritated than I was last night about the refereeing because I did. Objectively, it was bad refereeing. This is not a Atlanta-sided thing. Like, looking at that from a neutral perspective, there were calls that were so confusing. And as a player, you don't know what's allowed and what's not. But then you look at some of the egregious mistakes that were made, like the Derek Williams tackle on Messi, where he clearly wins the ball, clearly doesn't even get, any of Messi before he makes contact with the ball. He won the tackle. I mean, all day. Very easy to see, by the way. Yeah. And then you go back and you look at it's just that's frustrating. That's frustrating. And so it doesn't need to be the whole point, but fans do have a right to be pissed off about it. That doesn't give anybody a right to start throwing crap at the refs or anybody. Don't throw stuff at a soccer game. Just don't do it. It's crap.
I have people in my mentions saying, "Oh, he deserved it." No, he didn't deserve it. Even if he,
no one deserves that.
No one deserves it. I mean,
come on,
just don't do it. Don't do it.
No, I do want to hit on one of these because we're going to get into a lot of this in the Atlanta show in a little bit. One, again, nobody deserves to have crap thrown at them. Period. It doesn't do anything. They deserve the criticism. Absolutely. Give it to them for sure. Don't make it physical. Don't throw things. Right. All right. Just leave all that crap. I mean, first of all, don't waste a good beer. But don't throw stuff, man. Come on. Just don't do it. But then to get back on the neutral perspective of it, Dylan asked, does this change kind of the predictions and the ideas, vibes that we had of Javier Mascherano coming into the league? My answer, really quick, not at all. Not at all.
No,
I don't think
look at the roster.
Javier Mascherano has done anything here that has bettered this team. All he's done is put on.
Showed up.
Yeah, I mean, literally put on the turf, come out on the touchline. Like it's not. This is not Javier Mascherano making the team better, and I would argue
2019 Frank de Boer ? Question mark.
What's that?
2019 Frank de Boer ? Question mark.
I think
it's more talent.
In a lot of ways, yeah. Like coming off of Tata's success, you made some good signings. That's the front office. That's not Javier Mascherano. They brought you in. You have Messi running the team. Essentially, it's not on Javier. It's just not.
No, exactly. And, to kind of, just steer it back to Miami as a whole. Again, you have to respect their start. And Atlanta fans, I mean, we'll talk about, of course, on our Atlanta show, all that happened. So, stay tuned for that if you're watching or listening. But Inter Miami, as they move forward in their season, and by the way, they have an international break. They don't play on match day 5, so they get to rest for that. Gotta do your draw your own conclusions there. But they play Philadelphia. They have Champions Cup, LAFC coming up, Toronto, Chicago. So the schedule kind of stacks up pretty nicely for them, don't you think? And I think if you're a Miami fan, you're looking at this and say, hey, we got to take our opportunities here. We have a rest. We get to rest next weekend. We play Philadelphia coming out of the break. And we'll talk about Philly a little bit later on. We'll play TFC after that. We have Champions Cup against LAFC. Is this a team, guys? How far can this team go unbeaten? I mean, looking at those matches that I just mentioned, I don't know if you can find any match that Miami, let's just be transparent here, can lose. I mean, it's MLS, anything can happen, but if you look at the schedule, it kind of stacks up in a way that benefits Miami if they're looking to keep this streak going on. It's stack points at the beginning of the season, don't you think?
Yeah, I'll say this real quick. I think just like there's, they're playing so well, they can go out and beat any team right now, but you kind of alluded to it. The opposite of that is any team can beat them. Atlanta shot themselves in the foot last night. This was not so much that Miami played the better game. These were two relatively evenly matched teams in open play, but you had Atlanta making 2 mistakes and giving away 2 goals. And then you had Atlanta scoring a really good goal, almost a second, that was just a shoulder offside, and then kind of like losing control and kind of falling apart a little bit from there. But it wasn't that Miami just came and blew the doors off of
No, they didn't.
Atlanta. So they're going to get beat at some point. It is what it is. I mean, kudos to them for being undefeated this far, into the early part of the season. But they're not invincible. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, it's MLS. Anything random will happen. All I'll say is, they're on a streak. Because of the way this league is, it'll end with some random freaking, like, they'll go to Toronto and lose. They'll lose that Toronto game, even though Toronto's like 28th right now. It's going to be the stupidest loss ever. but it'll happen. Yeah, but also I wanted to touch on a comment here. If y'all are just joining, we are referencing another show because we are on a double header tonight. We have MLS Monday right now, and then at 8 we'll be doing our reactions to the game last night.
Full on Atlanta show at 8.
Yep. So just so you all know, now that we finished talking about some referee controversy, do we want to talk about somewhere else?
Yeah, go ahead, real quick.
No, I was just gonna say, and then kind of what came out today to cap that off is like Clara saying Messi's injured, missing Argentina's matches, pulled an adductor or something in the match last night. Doesn't really do a whole lot for Messi was injured for like 4 weeks prior to this, but. Anyway, he's now not going to be playing in the international break. So,
Portland, LA Galaxy. Oh boy, oh boy. What do you guys think? Penalty or no penalty? Let's get out of the way right now.
100%, 110% every day and twice on Sundays.
I have to say, I'm surprised about Phil Neville. I thought he would kind of blow his top at this press conference. Well, actually, hold on. Well, he did blow his top. He did blow his top at a press conference.
He kept it British and told Pro to kind of F off in a very nice way.
Right. Yeah, he was like, I ran not saying anything. He threw the whole if I don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. One of the worst decisions I've ever seen in MLS that I've been involved in. So maybe we don't invest in VAR, give that money to charity. So yes, like you said, didn't blow his top, but in a very British way. Yeah, you guys screwed up.
How does that not get overturned though?
Exactly.
Like it's so clear and obvious. He just takes him.
He's 2 feet. It's not so much that it was definitely a foul. But he's in the box. He has 2 feet.
It's a 2-footed foul in the box. It's a penalty. It's a stonewall penalty.
Yeah, it is. And Portland have every reason to feel hard done, guys, by this call or lack thereof. But it's just disappointing from Lucas Spalla and the VAR. Like, you have VAR for a reason, right? If there's a shadow of a doubt that there's a call that could have gone another way, you have to make it. And I know the rules are clear and obvious. Guys, it looks pretty clear and obvious to me. I mean, I don't know if you I don't know if they were looking at
irritates me about that, right? Like, clear and obvious means you have to go get to the monitor in the first place, right? If I'm not mistaken, he didn't even go to the monitor.
Well, clear and obvious means that VAR can recommend the check. It doesn't mean the ref has to do anything.
Right. But like, that's the thing. Like, in what world do you, sitting in a booth with multiple angles of this,
exactly,
you're seeing it? What world do you not say, hey, Lucas, might want to go double check that one? It's pretty clear. We've heard the audio from these guys before. Like, it's not like they're speaking in code. They're going to be like, yeah, you should go check that.
Right. I'd be interested in seeing what the audio comes out of this, what it sounds like. So Lucas Spalla was the referee. Soren Stoica was the VAR for that match in Texas or the DFW area. So I would love to hear where the conversation is because, guys, again, based on what we've seen, and I know maybe VAR has different angles, but none of them picked up that this at least could have been maybe a penalty, but you don't tell Spalla, hey, take another look. Maybe Spalla just decided not to, but just a very, very poor officiating job.
I don't think there was any pool reporter that asked the question. And if y'all don't know what I'm referring to, sometimes, and we've done this at Atlanta games, but there's a process to go and get an answer from the referees about a call in a game, and it's not done often. It's usually for a pretty egregious call. Like if this were an Atlanta match, we absolutely, if it wasn't us, it would have been Doug or somebody that would have asked.
Right.
And Pro will come back and give a very political response very quickly, written down on a piece of paper. You don't get to interview them. This is literally writing on like a piece of notebook paper and handing it to somebody to go deliver, and then they bring it back. I don't think that happened to get an explanation. And so if they do release the audio, I would just be very genuinely curious. Like, did you just F up? Because if you did, just say that, man. Like, we missed the call. That would go a long way to building a little bit of goodwill.
They don't want to say that, though.
I know, but you
because they
gotta
look
admit
bad.
at some point that you're humans. It's when you're
No, I know.
standing out there pretending to be robots, and then you make obvious mistakes, and then nobody owns up to it. That's when people like fans really start getting pissed.
Yeah, I mean, they have every right to. And of course, LA scores at the death to smash and grab their way to the draw. I mean, it just adds insult to injury.
Yeah.
We have to do something about it. I mean, coaches can't say anything about it or they'll get fined. Players can't say anything about it or they'll get fined. There has to be some level of accountability for this stuff. Why wasn't it called a penalty? Pretty much everyone agrees this was a penalty except apparently Lucas Spala. I'm sure if you ask Greg Vanny deep down inside, he's like, "Oh crap, that's going to the spot."
100%.
I mean, he won't say it. He won't say it straight
You're a
out.
liar if you don't believe that. You know.
But yeah, like I said, Timbers, very well should feel hard done by the refereeing there. Not as bad. I mean, Atlanta, Miami, Atlanta fans, maybe Miami fans too, to a lesser extent, could feel aggrieved by some of the calls Drew Fisher made and didn't made. Just poor, very poor.
I mean, that was an overall
LA.
poor performance.
Yeah.
It was a tough day for refs.
Yeah.
For referees.
The Portland game was one really, really wrong call. The Atlanta match was just a series of really bad calls and inconsistent calls.
But this is why you have the arguments of people saying, like, we shouldn't have VAR. Like and the thing is, it's not that it's a bad thing. It's just that it's being used here. Like it's not being used right because it's a very obvious call. You don't need the super technology to see with your eyes that, dude, that's a clear penalty. And that's where the questions come, unfortunately. And it's the inconsistencies in how it's applied, the inconsistencies in how games are refereed. And that, that just feels bad if you're a
100%.
fan and you're watching the game. And that's a game-defining decision. If that is a penalty, Portland probably wins that game. They have at least a chance to win that game.
I will say this real quick before we move on. You could argue outside of one, in Atlanta, Miami, none of those calls or maybe non-calls were game deciding for the grander scheme of things. Alba looks like he puts his hand in the neck of Atlanta players. Sure. I mean, maybe that should have been a red card. In the grand scheme of things, that didn't affect the match immediately. What happened in Portland, LA did, because A, potential penalty is taken off the board. B, LA scores on the other end and walks out with a draw.
Sydney, I'm gonna kind of disagree with you a little bit. Yes, the decisions in Atlanta were not game defining in the sense of they missed a penalty or they called a goal off unjustly. But what it does do is it kind of lets the other team kind of realize, oh, we can get away with really anything at this point. And you started seeing it because with the most minimal contact, they started going down. Or there wasn't contact at all, and they just started rolling around. And at some point, the ref just had to go, I can't give you any fouls. This is too much, right? And it's like it starts giving them that advantage of, okay, we can start getting away with things. The rule, look back at the rule that's new this season, that only captains or vice captains can talk to the referee. Right. There were multiple instances where Drew Fisher was surrounded by Miami players. And last week, Tori Penso did not hesitate to immediately card Emmanuel Latelat when he approached her. So why wasn't that happening there? Why weren't there yellow cards for those players who were starting to swarm the referee? It's the inconsistencies in how these games are ref that is so frustrating to see. And especially when they just are unbalanced towards one side, because then one team is like, okay, we can't really do much without getting fouled or getting called on it. And then the other team's like, we can get away with whatever we want. That's not right.
Yeah, last thing I'll say about this. Yeah, if you're Portland, you would hate to look back at the end of your season and be maybe 2 points or a point out of a playoff spot. You look back at Portland, LA, and say, my gosh, what if we had 2 points? What if we had won that game? We'd be in the playoffs, maybe barely, but at least we'd be in the playoffs instead of being on the outside looking in. Brett asking in the chat, does the fact that Portland took a shot on goal after the penalty matter? Henry, you're shaking your head no. Tyler, I know you want to hit on it. I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you agree it shouldn't have?
What it comes down to is you can, in a situation like that, allow advantage to be played, but advantage is not established in a second or two. That shot was taken literally like a bang bang play right after the foul. There's not enough time to really establish an advantage there. When it's that obvious of a penalty, it doesn't matter what happened after, unless a goal is scored and the ref can say, all right, well, yeah, I mean, because that's the end of the play at that point. But a shot's taken and you're still moving on with the game. During that time, that is normally when VAR is going to check and say, hey, there was no possession change. And that's another important thing. When there's no possession change, it's all in the same play, then you can't argue, that it swapped to the other team and then it got played back, whatever. It has to be in that same sequence of events. And this was, and yeah. And so to then go back and not even take a look at it, that goes against everything that we've ever seen with VAR, not just in MLS, but in every league that has it.
Yeah. So obviously there'll be questions asked about Portland, LA, definitely the Portland end, because they'll feel like they've been robbed of a win, and rightfully so. But moving on, Kansas City, I mean, not robbed of a win, or Minnesota not robbed of a win, but that was the craziest match of match day 4, guys. Just absolutely off the chain. Kansas City opened up, or Minnesota opened up the 3-0 lead at halftime. And I was asking just internally, does Peter Vermees make it out of March with this job? And then all of a sudden, in the span of about 12, 13 minutes, started off by Daniel Shawley in the 68th minute, own goal, and then Jovic scores in the 80th. It's a 3-3 match. Kansas City, massive comeback. Minnesota United, questions to be asked. How do you let that slip? How do you let a 3-3 match slip, or a 3-0 lead slip? You're up after an hour, and then 68th minute, you let it in one. Maybe you get a little shaky, and then 50 minutes later, the lead's gone. A demoralizing result for Minnesota, a result that Sporting Kansas City should have had no business getting in. How do you feel if you're a Sporting Kansas City fan? It's been a really tough season for them so far, but you literally get a point out of absolutely nothing. But this way, I feel like, guys, it's paper over the cracks, right? They still haven't won a match. They have 1 point out of a possible 12 at this point. I mean, what do you say about Sporting Kansas City at this point?
I mean, if you're being realistic as a Kansas City fan, exactly what you said. This is not. I mean, it's a lifeline, right? Like it makes you feel good for a week, but there's still glaring problems.
Yeah.
And then from Minnesota's perspective, like, look, 2-0 is the most dangerous lead in soccer. 3-0 is when you're supposed to be somewhat comfortable, especially in the second half. But you can't get that comfortable. And I get that the second goal was an own goal, but like you can't just change your game in the middle of a match when you're up. It's
Right.
one thing to, alter tactics a little bit, maybe sit a little bit deeper, a little bit, but you're still going for opportunities when they present themselves, when you create them. You can't just go and go from attacking, winning 3-0 to then trying to park a bus. It doesn't work that way. You can't just switch off, or maybe you didn't mean to switch off, obviously, but you switch to an entirely different game plan. You just can't do that. And Kansas City, whether it be by skill, luck, or a little bit of both, they made Minnesota pay for it and almost came back from 3-0 down to win. It wasn't just that it was 3-3. They almost won the game.
Insane.
Yeah, that's one of my frustrations when teams, even if they're 2-3 goals up, just completely change the tactics and just do what we call in Colombia the bat strategy, where everyone's like hanging up by the crossbar. That's not what you're doing. Is you're giving away possession, and when you give away possession and you allow these teams to come onto you, you're allowing them to cross balls into your area. You're allowing them to get chances off. You're allowing them so many opportunities to get back in the game that, if you give them enough time, they will. And that's what happened this time. And if you look back at the possession split, it's 68% in Kansas City's favor. And that comes from that, okay, we can retreat into our shell, we can defend. No, you can't. They found a way. And some of it was like there was an own goal in there. There was an own goal in there. And part of that is that, like, if you retreat into your shell and you play this defensive game, that's one of the risks. If you don't put pressure on them, you don't keep them honest, they're going to come on to you and they're gonna, be up in your face. And so that's just, that's an unfortunate loss for Minnesota, a very frustrating defeat.
Feels like a loss.
Sorry, tie that feels like a loss.
Yeah, it feels like a loss.
If you look at the other way, I mean, Kansas City, congrats on the point that you rescued at home. Credit there, but that's a very fluky way to win. I'm not sure they're completely happy with that either. Good luck recreating that against LAFC next week. Yeah.
And people have to understand too, in overall, I guess, soccer parlance, like we use the term parking the bus very often. And I think people kind of think it's a little bit of a cop-out in a sense. I mean, maybe it is a little bit, but parking the bus is not just putting, 10 guys plus your goalkeeper back behind the line and praying. Like, there is a strategy to it. Some coaches are better at it. Some coaches are better at coaching that kind of play to where you're going to hit on the break. Yeah. DeBoer.
Sporting Kansas City is not one of those teams.
That's the thing.
Minnesota.
Minnesota is not one of those. Like, you have to know what you're doing, and that's why I say, and we've had the argument, bringing it a little closer to home, about Atlanta over the years, where Atlanta's going up, sometimes 2-0 at times, and then blowing leads late in games because they're just not the team that is designed to sit back and absorb that much pressure over and over again. They have gotten better at it to a degree, but they're not a defensive team. So to tell a team like Atlanta to just stop attacking and then sit back, you're going to get punished. It is a coaching thing. It is not a decision that's made. It's one thing to put guys behind the ball and be a little more cautious and conservative. It is another thing entirely to go and literally, as we say, park the bus and say, hey, break us down, because good teams will find a way to break you down. And I'm not saying Kansas City is a good team, but if you don't know how to do your job, they're going to get you.
One last thing.
Quick. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to add, in this game, huge credit, huge shout out to Hassani Dotson for what has to be goal of the week. Absolute banger.
Yeah.
Absolute banger.
A forgotten man.
What you got?
Shout out to him. Real quick, and this is sort of a rhetorical question. Does this rejuvenate Sporting Kansas City's season, or is this kind of put some risk of PTSD for Minnesota down the stretch? I think if you're Sporting Kansas City, you have to look at this match and say, hey, we got to look at this as a turning point. We've not been good at any point this season. We're really fortunate to get a point out of a match that we were down 3-0 with a half hour left. So I think this has to be a turning point and a wake-up call for Sporting Kansas City, at a point where, hey, they could possibly use this to boost their season. If you're Minnesota, you got to look at this and say, hey, this can't ever happen again. We have to buckle down. If you're Eric Ramsey, you have to say, what can I do to keep this from happening? I think he has to look in the mirror and say, what did I do to, ultimately the players play, but Eric Ramsey has to ask, did I put this team in the position to get a win in the second half? You have a 3-0 lead with a half hour remaining, and you have to settle for a point. Very bad result for Minnesota, one that they have to really, I feel like, do a little soul searching and figure out why it happened.
Yeah. I think, it's one of those situations where, Kansas City's got a lot to prove, but just like any conversation we have about any teams this season, it's still 4 weeks in. There's still a lot of soccer left to be played. And I mean, maybe they did enough to give Peter Vermees another 4-year contract. I don't know.
5 years.
I wouldn't go that far, but
I don't know.
I still think between him and Caleb Porter, one of them's gone by next month. But
right.
Yeah. So let's jump on to the two teams that up until a couple of days ago were still perfect. One being Vancouver, one being Philly. Guess which one is still perfect?
Vancouver.
Vancouver. Philly is not. What do y'all think?
I mean, Nashville beating Philly 3-1, and then Vancouver beating Dallas 1-0. I mean, I feel like I'm more surprised about Nashville winning. And Nashville on 7 points, let's not bury the lead on Nashville. Off to a pretty decent start under BJ Collins in his first full season as Nashville's head coach. Again, Tyler, like he says, 4 matches in, so you can't draw too many conclusions, but a very pleasant surprise for them against a Philly team that has just been plowing through their schedule as of the first 3 matches, and then can't get a win against against Nashville, I should say. Too early to panic if you're Philadelphia, but too early to say, hey, we're going to win the Supporters Shield, certainly. So, again, small sample size. Vancouver, I mean, they just keep rolling, don't they? I mean, definitely the surprise of the season by far. Jesper Sorensen has come in and just done tremendous work in his first season with this club. And how far can they go is the big question. That being said, you know that this confidence as they've gathered, at least early on, could help them moving on toward the latter portion of the season, toward the middle of the season. 2 winnable games, guys, coming up against Chicago at home and then away to Vancouver. So this you could be looking at, not to get too ahead of ourselves, you could be looking at a 6-0 Vancouver team if the chips fall where they may. So obviously Vancouver is a big surprise. Philadelphia, you don't want to get too concerned about it. It's 1 match out of 34. Now what do you do to pick yourself up? And you just go again, right? Third match coming up against St. Louis. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, the job that St. Louis has done. But again, small sample sizes, but again, the Whitecaps are just a tremendous surprise to everybody. If you were to say the Vancouver Whitecaps would have been 4-0 to start the season, I mean, you'd be looked at as crazy, but here they are, guys.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. I think you said everything that needs to be said there. Yeah, huge surprises on both ends. I definitely didn't expect Nashville to be the team to beat Philadelphia.
Right.
Just haven't, especially with Philadelphia at home.
Either them or St. Louis.
Yeah,
either one.
Which we'll talk about that again. But huge credit to Vancouver. Huge credit to Jesper Sorensen for his work over there. One of the best starts of an MLS team ever in the history of this league. And he's doing it in his first year with this team. So hopefully you can keep that going. That would be awesome for them. And like you said, yeah, the teams coming up, they're teams that really they should be able to beat. I don't expect them to have too much trouble with Chicago or Toronto. So I think that they'll keep that going. But again, it's only, match day 4, still a little bit early. And we'll see what happens as the games start going, the pack starts to separate. I guess we'll see really where they truly lie.
Yeah. And actually, that's not the comment I was trying to pull up, but that's inside conversation with the chat currently. But no, Dan saying Hani Mukhtar being allowed back onto the field to take that Nashville penalty was questionable. Absolutely. This kind of goes into the running theme of tough refereeing over match day 4. But at the end of the day, I mean, Nashville did handle business. It was 3-1. So it's not like they squeaked it by. But goals change games. We know that. It's part of the story that is now 2025 MLS. And any soccer league in the world, you're going to have, if you go through the entire season, you're going to have games that are decided by a call or 2. And I don't think this is one of those, but this was a weekend of some of those, Portland being the main one. But all right,
real quick, longest winless streak or longest unbeaten to start a season, 13 matches, Seattle in 2021, 8-0-5. 8-0-5. So maybe that's something for Vancouver to shoot for. I don't think they'll get there, but maybe it's something to shoot for. Maybe it's something for St. Louis to shoot for. St. Louis still not scored on in MLS play, and just incredible what they've done over the past 4 matches. Again, small sample size, but that's nothing to sneeze at, guys. They're 2-2. They've lost, or they've drawn a couple of matches, but they're still unbeaten. And most importantly, nobody's been able to score against them. Seattle was their latest, I guess, victim, if you will. They've been scoring in the 15th minute, and they make it stand up. So just tremendous credit to Olaf Melberg and what St. Louis are doing right now. Seattle, 13 shots, just one on target, and just absolutely tremendous job. I'm impressed. I feel like they're the biggest surprise outside of Vancouver, just what they've been able to do. I mean, to have nobody score on you the first 4 matches, that won't continue, obviously, through all 34 matches. But, I mean, to do it over the first 4 matches is absolutely incredible.
It's not always the most fun soccer to watch, right? But, Atlanta once had a very good defensive team back in 2019, and I think a lot of us would, to go back to that record, would welcome at least, some consistency in those kind of games that you were coming out with points on. Again, not the most fun to watch, but you have to give credit to St. Louis for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
they are the definition of a counterattacking team. They absorb pressure. We go back to that park in the bus conversation. That is a coach who has coached his team well to be able to absorb the pressure. And then you have guys who can hit on the counter and they do it efficiently. That's the mark of a pure counterattacking team. It works in soccer. It works in the modern game. It works in Football Manager. It works wherever you want it to work, as long as you have those 2 keys, which is a solid defense and guys that know what each other are doing when it's time to counter and break. And I mean, St. Louis they're using it to their advantage. They know what they want to do and they're doing it.
Yeah, there's teams that do really, really well with the ball, and then there's teams that do really, really well against the ball. And St. Louis has been one of those teams this season. Massive credit to them. That's not an easy thing to do, to not concede a single goal. Huge reason for that. One of the biggest reasons is Roman Burki, their goalkeeper, who actually wasn't in this last game. I think they discovered a fracture in his hand, like on game day, that they didn't announce in the availability report, which was weird. But anyway, didn't end up mattering because they still kept the clean sheet. But yes, look, when you are that solid defensively, it keeps a very good foundation for your team to then go forward and do what they do best. And here's the thing. I know that there's a quote somewhere. I don't remember what it is, but it's, offenses win games, defenses win championships. So do with that what you will, but it's a huge credit that they haven't conceded a single goal, and they've faced pretty decent opposition. So it's nothing to scoff at all.
And just real quick, Ben Lunt, who was the starting keeper in place of Roman Burki, just faced 1 shot on target, so didn't have much to do anyway. So didn't really matter. St. Louis still won. Seattle not a huge threat attacking wise. By the way, Brian Schmetzer missed that match due to an illness. Not sure what the seriousness of that is. Hopefully not too serious. But Freddie Juarez, his top assistant, was interim head coach, and that was just a little side note for that. But yeah, St. Louis 2-0-2 to start the season, and most importantly, no goals conceded. How long can that extend? I don't have, guys, in front of me the longest goalless streak, the longest shutout streak in MLS history in front of me, but I don't know. See, St. Louis will get there, but they're
I think it's like, I want to say it's like 13 or 15 games.
13.
I think. I mean, let's
don't see them
find out.
getting there. Yeah, I don't see them getting there. Maybe to 5, 6, 7.
I don't know. You never know.
Doing some fact checking live on the show here.
Oh, wow.
Any luck? What do you got?
Oh, no, that's most individual clean sheets, and that was way back in the early days of MLS. Let's see. That's overall. Stephen Fry had 14 in a season. That's not back to back. I don't know.
We'll check it out.
We'll get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
681 minutes. Is that right?
Maybe something like that.
Atlanta United was in this discussion back in 2019.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
But the start of season, though.
Yeah. The start of season. Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to check it out and circle back maybe.
Back in 2019, after the 1-0 win over the Whitecaps, Atlanta had 5 consecutive shutout streaks, which was at that time a new MLS record.
So the record is 5.
They broke a tie that I don't know why I was thinking of. Maybe it was total that I was thinking of, but before that, it was like a multiple way tie between the Rapids, Revolution, Galaxy, Kansas City, San Jose, Red Bulls, New York City, and Kansas City again over multiple years. So there you go.
Maybe
so,
it's
so 5's the record. So they could tie the record this upcoming week against Philadelphia.
Yeah,
that's gonna be tough because Philadelphia has a really good attack. They have 11 goals, if I'm not mistaken.
I have 5 games in a row with a clean sheet. It's like almost unheard of.
Yeah, we do that EAFC or Football Manager.
Wow, man! To amateur difficulty,
right?
Win 13-0.
Yeah.
All right. Let's jump over to one of the really surprising ones of the weekend, and that was Austin absolutely shocking LA out at BMO. 1-0 win. And I mean, LAFC looked threatening, but they weren't able to get it done. And Austin was able to snag one and actually could have had 1 or 2 more. So it wasn't like they just got super lucky. They played a good game.
I feel like there's a little concern, not a ton, but a little growing concern in the ranks of LAFC fans that may be thinking, hey, this team isn't the team that it's been in past years. I mean, they're 2-2. They've not drawn a match. They've lost 2, won 2, and there's plenty of time to go in this season. I mean, it's 4 out of 34 matches, right? So can't get too caught up in the results early on, I think. But this team, LAFC, used to be a very ruthless team in the attack, a very attack-minded team under Bob Bradley. Definitely has changed under Steve Cherundolo. I mean, they still won games. They're still one of the top teams in MLS. But Tyler and Henry, 17 shots on the night, 3 on goal. You gotta challenge the keeper, and I don't think they did a really good job of challenging the Austin keeper throughout the evening, Brad Stuver. So maybe not too much of a job to do for Stuver that night or that afternoon. But if you're Austin, this is a tremendous result. This is a team that more often than not has been poor in MLS. And now here they are. They've won 2, lost 2. Off to a decent start under Nico Estevez, their first-year head coach. So maybe a little bit of a shot in the arm for Austin FC. LAFC, maybe some questions that are being asked about them are maybe intensifying just a little bit. Not overwhelming questions, but you got to look at, hey, why is this team a little bit off than what they've usually been able to do? So I think that's kind of the question you have to ask when it comes to LAFC, guys.
Yeah, looking at Austin, it's a credit to the work that Rodolfo Borrell has done in putting together this new attack that they have. Yeah. Bringing in Brendan Vasquez, who before then was already a proven goal scorer with Cincinnati. He's been in the U.S. men's national team camps, and Mauricio Pochettino was actually at that game, and there was pictures of them talking afterwards. So interesting conversations that could be happening there about him featuring for the national team. And then, them bringing in Mirto Ruzuni to replace Sebastian Driussi, who at the beginning of this club's history was an important player and then kind of dropped off his performances and kind of wiggled his way out, so to speak, this offseason. It's a different Austin, and it's an Austin that can't really be can't be underestimated. And I think it also shows that LAFC is at a point where it has to rediscover itself in a sense, because it's a very different team. You're 2-3 years removed from having won MLS Cup, having won the Supporters Shield all in that year, and a lot of those pieces have moved on. Yep. And really the only guy there left from that team is Denny Bouanga in the attack. Is Denny Bouanga, and it reminds me a little bit of Atlanta United after Miguel Almiron and Julian Gressel and all these folks left, to kind of relate it to something that Atlanta fans understand. Once you lose several aspects of that team, I think part of the issue is also kind of some of that winning mentality, that it's like, We instinctually win games. This is our attitude. This is how we go in. We know how to win games. We know how to play. I feel like that's kind of been lost a little bit on this LAFC side because you have so many new pieces. And, you brought in Olivier Giroud last season, and he hasn't really done anything. and I mean, you were counting, you were super excited to bring him in, and you're like, okay, well, we brought Bale in, and he did a good job. Giroud can keep that going, and he's not doing that. And so you're having to kind of pivot, and you're changing things, and you have a Bobasi, and he's a decent MLS striker, but I don't think he's what you want if you want to be a super competitive team in this league. That's LAFC has been a perennial contender. I don't think that is who you want if you are a perennial contender.
No,
but
I'll say this too.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been Vancouver and Philly. I'll be the first one to say I've been very wrong about some early season predictions, but LAFC, I was saying this well back in the preseason. They don't have an identity right now. And all the things you said, Henry, are absolutely correct. Like you're a team that you had success and you're still good. It's not that they're not a good team, but they feel like they're flailing a little bit. And you've got guys that are coming in that should be performing better than they are, admittedly. But I also think you've kind of fallen into that trap of we're going to buy players that individually can do the job, but maybe they're not the best fit for the team that we have right now. And I also feel like Steve Cherundolo is having a lot of trouble getting the team the identity that he wants, and it feels like it's been kind of falling off for a couple of years now, but they've been able to make it work. I don't think, unless they fix something immensely in the summer, I don't think this result that you saw that Austin had over them is going to be super, super uncommon.
Yeah. So again, part of the questions that we need to ask about LAFC moving forward, not just from a 2025 standpoint, but from a real big picture roster building standpoint. A couple more teams real quick. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna move us on. San Diego and Columbus remain unbeaten in
Colorado.
I'm sorry, Colorado. Well, I don't know where I'm going.
I put COL in the notes.
Yeah, I know, right? Columbus played San Diego.
Well, Columbus is unbeaten as well, but
yeah, but it was and we'll talk about the game very quickly. That the San Diego Columbus game, wild one, entertainment value. If you watched it, it was a good one. Columbus ends up with a red card. They're playing some really good soccer in the first half. They have a massive falling apart. San Diego snags one and probably could have snagged 2, 3, 4 more. Columbus held them off. They both come out of it with a draw. But sitting to your point, Colorado, Zach Steffen makes 12 saves over San
career
Jose.
high.
Yeah, that was a wild one. So, those are the two to kind of round it off. What y'all think?
Real quick, how about Zach Steffen? Is this kind of a resurgent year for him? I mean, he had kind of fallen out of the men's national team, pull for the U.S., comes back to Colorado, comes back to MLS, comes to Colorado, has a shaky year, his first season with the club. This season, he's been tremendous. 12 saves, like you said, Tyler, career high for him. Is this kind of a new and improved Zach Steffen? We saw his name on the Nations League roster. Maybe a chip on his shoulder, trying to get himself back in the discussion for #1 keeper for the U.S.? I think so.
I think you got to have the discussion.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, could be. I mean, 12 saves, huge performance. I think that actually earned him Team of the Matchday honors, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's huge for him, and it's good to see him kind of thriving again after, he had a successful time his first time around in MLS with the Columbus Crew. Yeah, so it's good to see him kind of good there. And yeah, I'll comment a little bit. San Diego, still unbeaten. I think people, them being an expansion team, maybe didn't expect a whole lot out of them to start the season, but credit to them, they've been doing well. And I believe they've this last game, maybe the last couple of games, they've had to do without Chucky Lozano because he's injured.
Yep.
And so it's great when you know that even though your big star is out, you could still get the results that you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so to round it all off, we'll dive into our matches to watch, our picks presented by Sweetwater Brewery. So, Henry, I see that you thieved mine in the notes. So why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Hey, if you don't write it down, then
I
you don't
did write it down.
You did not write it down.
I might even have a screenshot. I got proof. Go ahead.
I don't know. I said Charlotte, San Jose.
Yeah.
Two very interesting attacks. Be going head to head. Obviously, with the Charlotte, you have Wilfred Zaha, Patrick Ajimang, the whole gang. Okay, you wrote that after.
No, I didn't.
You did. I could see
I was out here typing.
I could see the thing blinking.
Oh my God, that's the last thing I typed in the notes. Go ahead, child.
But yeah, just two attacks going together. San Jose, Chicho Arango. I think Joseph got called up to national team, so I don't think he'll be playing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just interested to see how that one will end up. It could be a bunch of goals. It could be no goals. It could be. I expect this to be a crazy game.
I said Philadelphia, St. Louis, very intriguing. Of course, we talked about St. Louis have yet to concede a goal in 2025. Philadelphia looking to get back in the win column after that loss to Nashville. So very intriguing match day 5 matchup. Of course, some players will be out due to the international break, and that's a whole nother topic that we don't have time to hit on. Why are teams playing during the international break? MLS, come on. But that's my Philadelphia, Seattle, or Philadelphia, St. Louis, I believe.
Get out of the
Tyler
chat over here. This is ridiculous.
Tyler, what's yours? What's your other one?
My other one, my backup one, as it was stolen, is for me. It's LAFC and SKC. I think.
Nice.
Back to our conversation earlier, SKC is, you got to hope that if you're an SKC fan, then that was a little bit of a momentum builder, a little bit of a boost. You go and you can hit on an LAFC team that just had a really tough loss. And then LAFC, like, they're going to be looking to prove that everything that we just talked about with them not having an identity and everything else is not true. And so LAFC should win this game, but LAFC also should have won against Austin. So I think it'll be a good kind of litmus test for both teams going forward as to how they can build on the momentum or lack thereof coming off match day 4. So
3 very intriguing matches.
Yeah.
3 very intriguing matches. And
absolutely. Edgar agrees. LA Galaxy fans think Portland got robbed 100%. So, all right. Well, that is it for MLS Monday. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us again. This is a double header day, double match day. So we will be dropping off of here and then immediately going live again to chat and react and have emotions about this Atlanta match and let you guys jump into the chat, and we'll get on y'all's conversations as well. We will
see y'all in a whopping 2 minutes.
Also, subscribe to our audio content, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart. This show will be on there. The Atlanta United Miami reaction show will be on there as well. And again, like, subscribe on YouTube. Tell your friends about us.
Absolutely. We truly, truly appreciate it. See y'all in 1 minute.